Hello and welcome to SAT Media. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm here with my esteemed colleague and guest, Michele Hunter. She's running for the 54th District in Arlington Heights right now. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
It's great to have you.
Thank you. And if you're wondering where the 54th District even is,
Sure.
it's the northern half of Arlington Heights, everything north of Euclid,
Okay.
all of Prospect Heights, parts of Palatine, just little parts, and Buffalo Grove.
Okay. Cool. So I have to ask everybody this.
Yes.
But this is your first time running, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So what was like your main, I want to say like motivation for running?
I think like so many of these first-time candidates who are entering the ring, so to speak, it's now more than ever, we've got to turn this around. We've got to turn it around. And no more sidelines, no more watching things and, stressing or being upset. It's time to get in. And I so many other people that are running as well for the first time, like myself, feel exactly the same, and that's their motivation too. They just don't want to be on the sidelines anymore. They want to get in and make a difference.
Right.
Turn it around.
So what would be your number one issue? Like,
I've thought a lot about that, and as we know, issues change and erupt and things.
Yeah.
But right now, it seems like to me, like I'm knocking doors right now to get petitions and things like that. And something that is on a lot of people's minds are the schools. And basically, parents wanting a say with the schools. Whether it's COVID mandates or whether it's the education curriculum, schools are a very important issue for people. And that's right now, especially. And so that's I think one of the forefront issues. I mean, obviously, we need to balance the budget.
Right.
We need pension reform. We need to attract businesses back to Illinois. People are leaving in droves. There's a ton of issues, obviously, but schools are just big for people right now, for sure, especially in my district.
Yeah, they're big for me too. I have 2 kids at home, going into like high school.
Yeah,
and it's just you feel as a parent like you don't have a say.
Right.
It can be very frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so thankful for you guys, like newcomers like you, stepping up and just being like, gotta get this done,
Thank you. I think that the people running are impassioned. That's true. And I have an attorney background and kind of a small business background too, the way I grew up.
Yeah.
And but and it just makes you want to get in and do the right thing and enter the fight.
That's
I guess.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your background, like where you grew up and.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Iowa. Like Oskaloosa, Iowa. It's 12,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Which is actually not super small for Iowa, but, compared to Arlington Heights, which is like the third largest suburb, it was small. And I grew up with entrepreneurs, small business. My mom opened a store when I was 9. And, and she was the first female of the Chamber of Commerce. And and then 20 years later, my parents both opened up the first coffee shop in town.
Oh.
Which everyone loved. So it was like a store in the front and then a coffee shop that serves lunch in the back.
I love it.
And everyone loved it.
That's awesome.
And it was kind of like a thing for the people. Like most people loved it, but sometimes there were these like farmers who would come in and say, why do I have to spend $1.95 on coffee here when I can get coffee at Hardee's for $1, drip coffee unlimited. So, but even they came around and it just became, and they still have it 43 years later. My parents still have their business.
Wow.
So it's pretty wonderful. And so I grew up with small business. I grew up with that being kind of the table talk conversation and just, what's working, what's a challenge, what's hard. And so being in business that long, they've seen a lot of different things. Of course, COVID, Iowa didn't shut down as much and it was a little easier to survive for them.
Good, yeah.
But it's still a challenge for any business, just people were scared. And then so small business is a big part of my background. And then also I've been an attorney for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And I've had a government job and now I'm in insurance law. But my government job, I was a law clerk for a state appellate court. And doing that, I did that almost 15 years. And doing that, I learned like Springfield legislation, how to read it and interpret it. That's really all we did. Because any case that can get appealed, that's what, you're really dealing with Springfield legislation.
Right.
Or Springfield rules or the Illinois Constitution. There were a lot of constitutional attacks. So I sort of learned, whether it was like civil or criminal. Yeah. How to understand legislation. What does it mean? What's its real intent?
Right.
And at the time I thought it's interesting. So I had to read a lot of legislative history and the debates and what does this bill mean and why did it get passed, and so being an attorney and in small business, that's a lot of my background.
Wow. So you're kind of like a shoo-in for this. Like you've been like leading up to this your whole life, right?
Wouldn't that be great? I'd love that. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Yes, that would be wonderful.
That's awesome.
But they are skills actually that will be useful.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's sometimes where people, there's legislation out there and they title it one thing and then they really bury the lead, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the whole point of the legislation's on page 200 and paragraph 1,000. And so, as an attorney, you are kind of trained to understand that, read that, and then, try to interpret it, analyze it. So, yeah, that's a lot of my background.
Yeah. And so you're the only lone, Republican in the field, right?
Yes, so far,
right.
Yes, and I hope it stays that way. There's so far.
I don't think anybody else could, jump in right now.
It would be hard.
It would be very hard.
We are in the middle of petitions
right
now.
Right.
That launched, I think middle of January. And that's only until March 6th is the final date for that. And you want to really file earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So this is time to, get petitions. There's 400 signatures minimum, and then you want more of, obviously. So,
right.
Yeah. So to jump in now would be, it would be kind of a big thing to do. So, so far. Awesome. And it's an open seat, so there's no incumbent.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So
good. And who are you running against?
My opponent is named Mary Beth Canty, and she is a village trustee for Arlington Heights right now.
Oh.
Yes. And so she is the Democratic opponent.
Okay. But I think anybody who sees Republican on the ticket right now, they'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, I want her. Just with everything that's been going on right now.
Yeah.
With COVID, the mandates in our schools.
There's a lot of frustration.
Yes.
You're 100%
People are upset.
Right. People are upset.
Yes.
And honestly, it's not, obviously a lot of Republicans are upset, but it's not just limited to the Republicans. It is Democrats as well, independents. That's a lot of my campaign to reach them, because it's honestly, and I'm seeing this firsthand, not just Republicans who are upset about the government's decisions over the last year. Not at all. There are a lot of upset Democrats. And I believe, and I have friends who are Republicans and friends who are Democrats, and I believe that they're supporting me. Having their vote is something that can be done because of, like you said, just they're frustrated and they want to see change.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's very much how Youngkin ran his campaign in Virginia.
Oh, okay. All right.
He really listened to people and had good messaging to reach independents and some Democrats, and he really achieved that. So that kind of campaign can work, I think, with good, fair messaging, and he really listened to people. Whether it's economy or jobs or schools or whatever their concerns were. He listened, and that makes a big difference, and it goes a long way, especially now in my district. So that's
absolutely.
That's a big reach, and with the right messaging, I believe it can be done. Hunter, actually. So ironically, they ended up adopting him, which they were willing to do, but he was reunited with his mother, but he would have been Hunter. But he was reunited with his mother, and now my parents are kind of a support for both of them, which is really, a great ending. So foster care, just children, is a huge thing for me. And I've actually written a couple of children's books, and one of them is going to be published in couple of months.
Oh, cool.
And then the other one after that. So children, that's a really important cause of mine, I guess would be the best word. So those are some things, just practical stuff too. Of course, the gas tax, we should get rid of that. It's a tax on a tax. But those are some of the things right away I would start moving towards in Springfield.
Absolutely. Okay. And a question that's on every conservative mind right now. Do you think it's possible that you'll have a fair election?
Right. That is definitely a question that, and there's a lot of really good ways now that is being addressed.
Yeah.
Cleaning up the voter rolls, that's one thing. 2, poll watchers. That is a huge, now there's all these training programs for poll watchers, and I think that's a very important part for the election integrity. And also, Youngkin did a very good campaign again with that. He really watched all of the polling locations very, very closely and made sure there were good election judges and good poll watchers. So I think between those 3 things, yes, that it now that we know what needs to be done, I think it can be. And so it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And but like I said, with all these training programs out there, a lot of people are taking it very seriously. So election integrity is obviously paramount to the country and to all elections. So I've talked to Bob Grogan, who still doesn't know whether he won or lost, by 75 votes in his.
Wow.
So it's but good for him for challenging that, and so we'll see what's going to happen with that. But I mean, it's just a wake up call for a lot of us to make sure that the polls are being run correctly.
Right. It's our voice. Yeah,
it's our voice, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michele Hunter, for stopping by. It was wonderful talking to you. Wonderful to get to know you. And I wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you. And thank you for having me on the show.